What up? It's your boy Nick Incredible Man, and yes, I am back at it again. And this is 911 Lone Star Season 2, Episode 10 review. And I gotta say, it was good. Let's get into it, man. 911 Lone Star just be hitting different, man. Not to take away from 911. You guys know I love 911. But 911 Lone Star coming in different every week, man. It's always something you can grab onto, hold on to, and be like, oh, okay, this is good, man. This is way too good. This week we see that Captain Strand is dealing with a little bit of depression. Maybe because, his life kind of had the rug snatched from under him with Gwen and the baby not being his, and then finding out that he's pretty much in remission from cancer. He just needs to have this one surgery to remove that last little piece, and everything's going good, and I'm thinking he doesn't really know how to handle that because everything is going so good. And then he had that moment with Gwen. We all know how that felt. But we see that he's a little depressed this episode, and we find that out after the very events of the very first case. Let's talk about the first case first. Oh my gosh, I've never in my life. Now, this dude can clearly tell that these people aren't his friends. They're just doing this to get the free ice cream from him from the store. And the chick that's working with him tries to tell him this, like, dude, these people aren't your friends. She's your only friend. Not to be rude about it, but like, she's a legitimate friend, just using you. And that was very evident when he got caught in the machine. The first thing that they do is own look and then start recording it once the girl frees him and she gets caught in the machine, and the firefighters come to rescue her, and they're just recording it and laughing at these people the entire time. But Marjan came through and just recorded them and put them on blast on her Instagram account. And next thing you know, it just started blowing up, man. So I felt like it was just desserts, pun intended, if you will. So I felt like it was just desserts for them using this kid constantly just to get free ice cream. But I digress. So we see that after that case, that TK wanted his dad to have dinner with him, because we see that while he was helping TK move into Carlos's place, that he was going through some things. He felt a little off kilter a little bit, and we find out that he's depressed because of everything that's going on, and we see that he doesn't want to admit it, man. And that's the sad thing. Like, a lot of times when people are depressed or going through other mental capabilities that's harming them, they don't want to acknowledge it or handle it. And that's the case with Captain Strand this episode as well. But we got that information into it a little deeper when we find out that Mateo ended up having to crash with the captain for a little while because his place blew up. Because he had some idiot roommate. First of all, he stayed with a lot of people for one, but he had some idiot roommate that's trying to be a cook or a chef or something, and he ended up adjusting the gas nozzle and stuff and ended up releasing more gas coming through the pipes. And next thing you know, it started flooding the whole house with gas. And then one chick is leaving incense burning in her room for some reason, and the next thing you know, their whole house just blows up. So Proby has nowhere to stay. So Mateo's looking... he's trying to crash at the firehouse, but the second shift kicked him out of the bunk room. So like, now he doesn't have anywhere to go. So he decides to stay with Captain Strand when Captain Strand offered. And we see that they ended up drinking tequila and having a blast that night, which seems like fun, right? You would think so. But long story short, we see that Owen getting drunk also made him a little vulnerable, and he was telling Mateo that, yeah, I canceled my cancer surgery. And now you could chunk it up to him being drunk that he was able to express that. But that shows that, like, deep down, he kind of wanted some help and wanted someone to know. But, like, while he was sober, he didn't have, the capacity to tell anyone. But now that he's drunk, hey, everything's open for business now. And Mateo finding that out, he ended up telling Marjan and Paul that, hey, the cap, something's wrong with the cap. He's a little sad and a little depressed. And he tells them about him canceling the surgery. Now, TK is the only one that doesn't know at this point. So they end up going on another call, and we see that it's this little kid that he's sitting on top of his roof because his mom threw him a birthday party and no one showed up. That's because they're the new people in town. And it was sad that no one showed up to his party, but we see that everyone in the 126 ended up talking about Captain Strand being depressed on an open channel. Like, he heard everything that they were saying. I was like, I don't know, man. Cap's depressed. Like, you sure? Yeah, Cap was a little depressed. And like, it was over the open radio, so he heard everything they were saying. So he decided to go up to prove that he's not depressed, to talk to this kid to get him to come down. And at that same time, I'm assuming like off camera, we see that Mateo probably told TK and everybody else. And that time we got to see an intervention. After that, we see an intervention with Captain Strand and the whole 126 and TK and Carlos. Now, with this taking place, they just tried to put it on blast, and it didn't work at first because like nobody really just, well, I didn't write anything down, man. You're supposed to speak from the heart, but Marjan came up there with this weird, like, you know, Cap, like, I just want to thank you for breaking me out from Miami, and you are the best, Cap. It was like, okay, well, that's that. But then Judd really just made it known that hey, you going through something, and you just don't want to admit it. And then they kind of get real with it, and everybody kind of says their piece, and they made some very valid statements. You know, he rolls with the punches, and the moment he's not really handling anything, that's when he kind of just sinks into that bottom place, and where he's kind of just really reeling in. And they decided to leave because he wasn't hearing what they were saying. He was thankful that they cared for him so much, but they tried to show him that, like, hey, we care about you, but they didn't want to sit there and just and talk to him and him not acknowledge what they're saying. So they decided to leave. And at the same time, we also see that something's going on with Buttercup the next day. And it finds out that she swallowed the little sloth piece that Gwen had left there, but Captain Strand thought it might have been her. Is Buttercup a he or a girl? I can't remember. But anyway, we find out that Buttercup swallowed the piece, and it may or may not be a tumor. And I was so upset for a moment because, like, I was remembering that Buttercup did have cancer, and I was like, oh my gosh, did the cancer return to Buttercup? And luckily it wasn't, but that also made it real for Captain Owen at the same time. Captain Strand, or whatever. Owen. It also made it real for Owen at the same time that, you know, this is serious. So he called Carlos and TK, and they showed up, and they were there for him. And he told TK in that moment, you know, I'm gonna reschedule the surgery to go ahead and have to cut out the rest of the place. I understand why he was worried. He was like, well, what if something happens and they may not get it all and the cancer returns? There's always that possibility, but let's just hypothetically, what if it's healed? What if, like, everything goes perfect and you're back to normal? Because then he won't have an excuse to feel sorry for himself. And that was kind of laid evident in this episode. And I'm glad that we got that resolution at the end for him to actually go, because I love me some Captain Strand, man, and I want him to be around, and I'm glad that he decided to reschedule the surgery. Now, let's talk about one of my favorite parts, and one of your favorite parts, and one of everybody's favorite parts of 911, which is Grace and Judd. We see that Grace and Judd this episode are still reeling from the accident and everything, and we know that Grace got heavily injured, and Judd is going back to work today, so we see that he can't be there with her, but Grace doesn't want help either. Judd wants to just help her constantly, but she doesn't want it. Her parents want to help her. Everybody wants to help her, but she doesn't want it because she's not that person. She's never been put in a situation like this where she just needed help or needed for somebody to wait on her. She's always been her own person, to stand on her own 2 feet and just keep on trucking. But that can't be the case this time. And it's made very evident when Judd goes back to work. And he's texting her constantly throughout the day, and she's replying, but then we see that she ended up going to the store on her own in a situation because she wanted some Rocky Road ice cream, where it could have potentially been very horrible, because we noticed that in the store she ended up doing some things on her own. One guy offered to help her, but she was like, no, I got it. But she gets to the car, and, you know, it's all heavy for her. She can't really put any pressure on her foot, so she's throwing all these bags in here, and just so happen her keys are in her hand, and they go into the car on the floor. She tries to get in to get them, and like she overextends her hip or her leg or something. So she ends up being stuck in the car for 6 hours. Judd texts her and asks if she's okay. She's like, yeah, I'm fine. It's good. So she's lying to Judd at the same time while being in a very tense situation because she's hurt herself. And she doesn't want to admit it. A nice old lady comes over and asks her if she's okay. She's like, yeah, I'm good. But she's stuck in this car for 6 hours because she doesn't want to admit it. And that's the sad part, man. I love me some Grace, but she was being foolhardy this entire episode. But then Tommy came. She called Tommy, finally she owned up and realized that, well, I've been stuck here for 6 hours. I can't do anything. I need to call somebody. So she finally calls Tommy. Tommy shows up to help her, and when she does, she mentions that, hey, you're not going to be able to do the things that you were doing before. Now at this moment, you can get back to that place, but as of right now, you can't do the things that you were doing before. So just there's nothing wrong with asking for help. That goes back to the same things on 911 that we discovered this week as well with Maddie and Chimney. There's nothing wrong with asking for help. And at the end of the episode, we see that she's in the bed. She's trying to get out of the bed, and she can't. And she's struggling. She's having a hard time. Then she wakes up Judd and asks him for help to help her with the walker and everything. So I'm so happy to see that by the end of the episode, we see that she does get the help that she needs, and she asked for it. And that's all she had to do the entire time, because they're there and they're willing and they're able to help her in the time that she needs. But all she has to do is ask. And we see that she realizes that by the end of the episode. And that just made this episode 10 times better, man. And I love the fact that we focus on, 100%, we focus on Captain Strand and Grace this episode. So like, we didn't really have too many stories going on in the cases. They really wasn't all of that. But I love 911 Lone Star, because like, when it comes to the aspect of the main characters, it hits different, man. Don't get me wrong. I love 911 too, but it just seems like they're hitting a little bit different in 911 Lone Star in season 2 anyway, man. This your boy, Dick Incredible. Don't forget to smash the like button so you can't smash any more. Comment down below, and I'll be sure to respond to each and every one of them, and subscribe, but only if you really want to, man. Peace out.
I cannot complain, because today, I'm doing my